It's 7 p.m. Friday, July 26th, here in Seoul.
Coming up on News Center tonight. North Korea says its latest missile launch was a warning to South Korea about its upcoming joint military exercise with the U.S. And the launches were personally overseen by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
U.S. President Donald Trump, however, downplays Pyongyang's missile launches. He claims the size of the missiles is nothing of concern, but does urge the North to stop further provocations.
Japan looks likely to take South Korea off its so-called whitelist of trading partners next week in a further blow to South Korea. Seoul again warns Tokyo that such a move will only escalate tensions.
And the recent heavy monsoon rain shows no sign of letting up, with more showers expected over the weekend. Authorities are urging the public to take caution, especially in flood-prone areas. NEWSCENTER begins now. Good evening and welcome to Arirang News Center. Coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Arirang.
And I'm Jaein. It's great to have you with us. North Korea's state media says the regime's firing of 2 short-range missiles into the East Sea yesterday was a warning to Seoul against its upcoming joint military exercise with the U.S.
It also said North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was the one who organized the missile launches. Oh Jang-hee starts us off.
In a report about Thursday's missile launch, North Korea slammed South Korea for its upcoming joint military exercise with the U.S. next month. According to Pyongyang's state-run Korean Central News Agency, the launch of short-range missiles was, quote, personally organized and overseen by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un himself. It was intended as a show of force, it said, to warn South Korea against going ahead with the joint exercise despite the North's continued messages.
The South Korean authorities are showing a strange double-dealing behavior by organizing some peaceful handshakes and joint statements in public, but adopting ultra-modern offensive weapons and conducting joint military exercises behind the scenes.
The North described the F-35 stealth jets that Seoul recently acquired as offensive weapons and stressed that the regime should further ramp up security to neutralize the threats. And in doing so, Pyongyang is confident that Thursday's missile launch must have made some feel uneasy, as its new tactical guided weapon is hard to intercept and is soon to be deployed. The North directed its message to South Korean President Moon Jae-in, saying this is a warning Seoul should not ignore.
Leader Kim Jong-un advised the South Korean chief executive that he needs to realize the danger of suicidal acts like the introduction of ultra-modern weapons and military exercises and put a stop to them. Though he might take offense to this, the South Korean chief executive should not ignore today's warning from Pyongyang.
North Korea has long been sensitive about joint drills by Seoul and Washington, calling them a rehearsal for war. It issued a statement last week saying explicitly that the denuclearization talks could be at risk. It has also expressed a negative view to the World Food Program about receiving rice aid from the South. Oh Jang-hee, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the South Korean military has released more details about North Korea's recent missile launch, following the Blue House National Security Council officially verifying them as ballistic. Our Kim Ji-yeon has more.
South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said Friday that a detailed assessment of North Korea's Thursday launch showed the 2 missiles both flew around 600 kilometers, different from its initial estimate of around 430 and 690 kilometers. These figures are still provisional in that a final assessment will be carried out based on analysis jointly conducted with the U.S. An official from the Joint Chiefs of Staff also confirmed that characteristics of the missiles were similar to Russia's Iskander-class ballistic missile system, but that it seems to be a new version in which they're currently scrutinizing. Normally, Iskander-class missiles have a complicated flying trajectory, making it difficult to collect data to shoot them down with anti-missile systems. The detailed analysis was released a day apart from its initial brief. The official said the military's continued analyses based on projectiles shot by the North in May have helped speed up the assessment for Thursday's launch. The official refuted suspicions the military were not able to spot the recent missiles, adding the fact that they're releasing data is because it was able to detect them. The official added the gap in his estimates were mainly due to the missile's flight trajectory, flying in a northeasterly direction from North Korea to the East Sea, but stressed any missile flying from North Korea in a southerly direction would have been detected with no glitch. The official also said the military is capable of detecting missiles launched using a transporter erector launcher, but said it doesn't use all of its detection equipment and assets in monitoring movements in the north. The official also said the military is currently fully capable of intercepting the latest missile launches with the existing anti-missile system, the Patriot. The official said the military see Thursday's missiles as a test fire stage of missile development and that they are not fully operational. Seoul's defense ministry reiterated its previous stance that although missiles have been officially verified as ballistic, it does not see them as a direct violation of the Inter-Korean Comprehensive Military Agreement, but that they do go against the spirit of said agreement in lowering tensions on the peninsula. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
While there are voices in the U.S. calling for more sanctions on the North for their recent missile launch, such seems unlikely, with the U.S. President and his Secretary of State both downplaying its significance. Our Lee-Jae-won has more.
The United Nations Security Council resolutions on North Korea clearly condemn its ballistic missile activity and call on the regime to put an end to it. Thus, North Korea's firing of ballistic missiles on Thursday clearly violates those resolutions. But whether or not this will result in more sanctions on the North remains to be seen.
Not all ballistic missile launches have resulted in additional sanctions. Normally, new resolutions and sanctions are prompted by nuclear tests and long-range missiles, but not short or mid-range missiles. These launches were short-range, and South Korea was the only country within striking distance. So whether or not the Security Council will meet and take up the issue depends on the South.
On a similar note, President Donald Trump downplayed the missile launch on Thursday in an interview with Fox News. Trump said he gets along with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un very well, and that the North has not conducted nuclear testing or anything more than launching short-range missiles, which he said is something that many others do too. This is in line with what he said about the North's launches in May when he called the missiles some small weapons. However, he also warned the North on Thursday against further provocations, saying that though the two enjoy a good relationship, there's no guarantee that will continue. Trump's top diplomat, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, described the launch as a negotiating tactic. In an interview Thursday with Bloomberg Television, Pompeo said everybody tries to prepare for negotiations by creating leverage and risks for the other side. The door to diplomacy with North Korea, he said, remains open, and he anticipates working-level talks to take place in a couple of weeks. Pompeo also suggested that he isn't bothered by the delay, saying the two sides need to have enough conversations to produce productive dialogue when they sit at the table. The leaders of North Korea and the U.S. promised to resume talks within 2 or 3 weeks when they met last month at the DMZ, but that time frame has come and gone. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
As for the ongoing trade dispute between Seoul and Tokyo, Washington has acknowledged the negative impact Japan's export measures could have on the global supply chain, as well as on American industries. Our Kim Da-mi with the details.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross says the U.S. is willing to play a mediating role in South Korea's trade dispute with Japan. This is according to Seoul's Trade Minister Yoo Myung-hee. This came after Yoo met with her U.S. counterpart for an hour at the U.S. Department of Commerce on Thursday.
U.S. Commerce Secretary recognized the negative effects of the unfair export control measures on U.S. industry as well as the global economy and mentioned it would do its necessary role.
Speaking to reporters in Washington, D.C., she also emphasized that the U.S. representative seemed well aware of how Japan's export restrictions could harm American industries, including the smartphone and semiconductor sectors. As to what kind of the role the U.S. will play, Yoo only noted that the U.S. is well aware of its role in the Seoul-Tokyo trade dispute. However, Washington has given off mixed signals on whether or not it might get actively involved in the issue. Early on Thursday, a parliamentary delegation from South Korea also met with Senator Tom Cotton and Representative Ted Yoho, among others, in a bid to resolve the Seoul-Tokyo trade spat. Speaking after those talks, Jung Se-gyun, who's leading Seoul's delegation, said the U.S. generally understands Seoul's position and that Japan's move goes against free trade principles, but it's difficult for them to get directly involved. Some of the delegation also met with Mark Napper, the State Department's Deputy Assistant Secretary for Korea and Japan, who echoed those remarks. Napper reportedly said the trade tensions will likely have an impact on their trilateral security cooperation, but the U.S. isn't in a situation to come up with a concrete response. On Friday, the South Korean delegation will attend a biannual meeting with U.S. and Japanese lawmakers. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
South Korea's Deputy Trade Minister Kim Seung-ho has once again called on Tokyo to lift its export curbs on Seoul, saying they are outdated measures. Here's him speaking to reporters as he returns to Seoul from the WTO General Council meeting in Geneva.
Japan's export restrictions are anachronistic and are out of line with the principles of interdependence and mutual cooperation in the international community. For its own sake and that of the globe's, Japan should behave responsibly as a G20 chair by retracting its export curbs at the earliest date.
The South Korean trade official added that Japan is trying to exploit South Korea's vulnerability, with semiconductors taking up a quarter of Korea's exports. Expressing deep regret over Japan's refusal to sit down for talks, Kim said South Korea will do its best to prepare against Japan's economic retaliation. Well, it now seems almost certain that Japan will take South Korea off of its whitelist of its trading partners. Japanese media reported on Friday that the country will make its final decision on August 2nd. Our Song Kyung has more.
Japan will make its decision on whether or not to remove South Korea from its whitelist of countries that enjoy preferential trade conditions on August 2nd, according to the Japanese news agency Kyodo News. Japanese daily Yomiuri Shimbun on Friday also reported that Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's cabinet will review the new trade rules of approval on the same day. If Tokyo's expanded export control measures are given the green light, it will go into effect 21 days after being approved. If South Korea is removed from the whitelist, Japanese exporters will have to apply case by case in order to ship restricted items to South Korea. The process will likely cause delays in shipments and disrupt the production of related goods, hurting not only Korean firms but also foreign companies in the global supply chain. Meanwhile, the South Korean government sent a letter to Japan on Wednesday asking Tokyo to react its decision to remove Seoul from its whitelist. 서은경, Arirang News.
Leading Japanese media outlets are calling on Seoul and Tokyo to resolve their trade dispute diplomatically. In an editorial, Mainichi Shimbun said if both sides continue to take a hardline approach, tensions will only grow and there will be no way out. It said if Tokyo removes Seoul from its whitelist of preferred trading partners, South Korea's boycott of Japan will only get worse, and it urged dialogue and concessions. Asahi Shimbun said that linking trade issues to political and historical matters undermines Tokyo's commitment to promoting free trade. It said that both nations have fallen into a vicious cycle of criticizing each other and that they should not forget they have many areas to cooperate in, such as security and North Korea. Meanwhile, the Tokyo Shimbun warned Japan's export curbs could have serious implications for its own economy. It also called for the two neighbors to seek a resolution through dialogue, not confrontation. Now, while Japan is looking to remove South Korea from its white list, Seoul's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa told her Japanese counterpart today not to aggravate the situation. Seoul's Foreign Ministry said the minister made the plea to Taro Kono over the phone earlier today. Kang also again urged Tokyo to remove its trade restrictions against Seoul. Kono held its ground on that issue, but they did agree on the need to continue dialogue and to use multilateral meetings to exchange views. The two diplomats also discussed North Korea's latest missile launches and agreed that Seoul, Tokyo and Washington need to work together at such an important juncture. North Korea is also criticizing Japan for its export restrictions on the South, accusing it of using trade to cover up its wartime atrocities. Speaking exclusively to South Korean broadcaster KBS at an international forum in the Philippines, the vice chairman of Pyongyang's Korea-Asia-Pacific Peace Committee, Lee Jong-hyuk, said the restrictions are not just economic retaliation, but Tokyo's way of whitewashing its war crimes. He also said Japan needs to apologize and compensate the Koreans it used for forced labor and those it sexually enslaved if it wants to mend ties with Pyongyang. Ever since the trade conflict started, South Koreans have been boycotting Japanese goods and travel to the country. And now it looks like the boycott is taking a toll on Japan's tourism and retail industries. Lee Min-sun with more.
About a month since South Koreans began their mass boycott of Japanese products, the Japanese economy is suffering from a drop in the number of tourists. Japanese daily Asahi Shimbun reported that a large drop in spending by South Korean visitors is damaging Japanese tourism and retail industries. The newspaper found that since the boycott movement started, some 1,100 Koreans canceled their reservations at Japan's traditional hotels in Oita Prefecture, a popular tourist destination with hot springs. The report also said the number of South Korean visitors to Japan has decreased by 10% in July compared to the same period last year, citing data from Japan's largest travel agency, JTB Corp. Reservations for the jet ferry that runs between Busan and Osaka have fallen to one-third of the usual amount, and many Korean low-cost carriers have decided to cancel their scheduled flights to Japan. Japanese retailers are also suffering from the boycott. One of the largest shopping outlets in Fukuoka saw sales decrease by 25% during the week up to July 23rd compared to the year before. Other major Japanese firms like Asahi and Kirin breweries have pulled their TV advertisement from South Korea, and Japanese clothing brand Uniqlo also saw falling sales in July. However, the boycott movement is spreading to wider areas in South Korea. In addition to customers not buying Japanese products, many retail shops and traditional markets have declared that they will not sell Japanese products. South Korea's Logistics Association also announced that they will not deliver specific Japanese brands. With the trade conflict between two countries still lingering, the boycott and its impact on both countries' economies could grow even larger. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
A recent survey shows that nearly 80% of Koreans are reluctant to buy Japanese products and services as tensions rise between the two neighboring countries. That's according to a poll by Gallup Korea conducted Tuesday through Thursday on more than 1,000 Korean adults. Only 15% of respondents said they were not reluctant, with the other 5% declining to answer. Half of the respondents, meanwhile, thought the Korean government was doing a good job handling the trade row. More than a third said it wasn't. In a separate poll by Realmeter, more than 60% of Korean adults surveyed said they were boycotting Japanese goods, a steady rise over the past 2 weeks. President Moon Jae-in replaced 3 of his senior aides this Friday as a way of refreshing atmosphere for public officers and ahead of the highly anticipated cabinet shake-up likely to take place early next month. Presidential correspondent Shin Se-min with the details.
The presidential office underwent a minor shake-up on Friday. President Moon Jae-in replaced 3 of his senior aides, namely the Secretaries for Civil Affairs, Job Creation, and Civic and Social Agenda, a move that is likely to set the tone for an upcoming cabinet reshuffle expected in early August. The CEO of Korea Aerospace Industries, Kim Jo-won, will replace Cho Guk as the new senior presidential secretary for civil affairs. Kim previously served as Secretary for Civil Service Discipline back in 2005 under the Roh Moo-hyun administration and rubbed shoulders with President Moon Jae-in, who was then serving as the Senior Presidential Secretary for Civil Affairs. And Cho Guk is leaving as the longest-serving senior presidential aide under the Moon administration, having served his role for over 2 years. For the position of Senior Presidential Secretary for Job Creation, the president promoted Hwang Deok-sun to succeed the outgoing Chung Tae-ho. Hwang has a strong track record of not only serving the administration as a presidential secretary, but also as a researcher in the field, having previously worked at the Korea Labor Institute. The president also appointed Kim Go-sung as the senior secretary for civic and social agenda, replacing Lee Yong-sun. Kim had formerly served as the head of Transparency International Korea. This could only be the prelude of a wider shakeup, with the Moon administration reportedly preparing a major reshuffle early next month, with some 7 to 9 appointees likely to be subject to a vetting process. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in, meanwhile, says social integration is one of the most difficult tasks facing the country. At a Blue House luncheon attended by a dozen representatives from the Buddhist community, President Moon acknowledged that people cannot always share the same thoughts due to differing political views and beliefs. But he expressed hope that people will pull together in times of difficulty right now, including the trade spat with Japan, inter-Korean relations and the stalled talks between North Korea and the US. President Moon sought advice from the Buddhist leaders on which direction the country should take. South Korea has been drenched by monsoon rain this week, and forecasters say it will continue throughout the weekend. Heavy rain warnings are in effect in regions near the capital. Oh Soo-young with the details.
Heavy showers across the peninsula are expected to continue throughout the weekend, with the central and eastern regions of the country forecast to experience an even heavier downpour. The Korea Meteorological Administration said Friday that rainfall in Seoul as well as Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces will likely be in the range of 80 to 200 millimeters, while some areas could see rainfall of up to 300 millimeters. 200 millimeters of torrential showers are forecast in the western regions into Sunday morning, while the southern provinces and Jeju Island will see between 5 and 40 millimeters, with the rain dying down by Saturday. The rainy outlook comes after the country issued the first heavy rain warning of the year in the central areas, including Seoul and parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces. Heavy rain warnings are usually issued when more than 90 millimeters of rain is forecast over a 3-hour period, or over 180 millimeters in the space of 12 hours. Advisories are issued when 60 millimeters is expected to fall over 3 hours. The heavy rain on Friday caused flooding in the roads and drains in the city of Incheon, while a lightning strike triggered a power outage at a factory in the central city of Seosan. Authorities have warned the public to take special precaution, especially in areas that are prone to flooding, citing concerns of a landslide. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
So the big night is here as the Italian Football League champions Juventus are in Seoul tonight to play the K-League All-Stars. And the match starts in less than an hour at 8 p.m. Korea time. And ahead of that, the Juventus players met with and gave autographs to their South Korean fans at Grand Hyatt Seoul hotels. Players including Wojciech Szczesny and Jean-Louis Buffon said they were excited about tonight's match. The team's biggest star, Cristiano Ronaldo, is here too for the first time in 12 years, but his fans were disappointed today after finding out that he's not attending the fan meeting because he wanted to focus on the match. Juventus have been here in Seoul before to play the South Korean national team, but that was more than 20 years ago in 1996. Korea's biggest annual martial arts festival, the World Taekwondo Hanmadang, kicked off today in Pyeongchang for a 5-day run where we'll be seeing plenty of head high kicks, jumping, and spinning kick techniques. Our Choi Si-young takes us there.
Taekwondo practitioners are showing off board-breaking performances, jumping high in the air and crushing them with their bare feet. This high-flying aerobatic move is an iconic part of Taekwondo that adds a jolt of excitement to the gathered spectators. Here at the Yongpyeong Dome in Pyeongchang, which hosts the 2020 Winter Olympics, nearly 5,000 people have gathered from 57 different countries, making this year's event the second largest since it was first held in 1992. Chinese nationals were the most numerous among the foreign contingent taking part in the event. They say the beauty of Taekwondo lies in exerting energy, which they say brought them to this annual martial arts festival.
Taekwondo was different to me in that, unlike Chinese traditional martial arts, I felt more energetic even after practicing it. That was about 20 years ago. Since then, I've been attached to this Korean sport and am practicing it.
Among the foreign demonstrators were those who flew all the way from Africa. While they agree Taekwondo is all about energy, they also appreciated how this Korean martial art creates a sense of fellowship among the practitioners.
The one thing I can say, it's a well-organized teamwork, And again, I want to say thank you to the master of my team, Master Cook of Master Lee from Korea. Is my coach in Kenya. He's the one who encouraged me to come to participate in this sport.
People say Taekwondo is no longer a sport practiced locally in Korea or limited to Asia, but rather its influence has reached as far as the heart of Europe.
I am a trainer in Italy. I have a lot of children. They starting training in Taekwondo, and many parents can take their children to our dojo, and so it's a beautiful manner for educate the children.
Touching on a similar note, the organizers at the opening ceremony said Taekwondo has many physical and educational purposes. They expressed hope that this annual event could allow more people across the world to discover and cherish this age-old Korean martial art. 최시영, Arirang News, 평창.
The Moon Jae-in administration has been putting the spotlight on Southeast Asian nations as part of its new Southern policy. And as a way of boosting cultural ties with the ASEAN, one Malaysian elephant illustrator has visited Korea with a special message. Our Kan Young-woo tells us more.
Children and their parents are drawing elephants of different shapes and sizes. Once they finish, they bring up to this professional illustrator, an elephant expert from Malaysia, who then whips out his crayon to sketch an elephant of his own.
It's interesting. Looking at all those elephant drawings was fun. I think I tried to copy the instructor's elephant, but he drew them from his imagination.
This cultural exchange program called Easy Access Malaysia was organized by South Korea's ASEAN Culture House. The guest this time is the famous Malay illustrator Yusuf Kajak, who is a winner of one of the 3 most prestigious international awards for children's books and is well known for his colorful and abstract elephants. Kajak hopes to send a message to the kids in the program through the elephants he's been drawing to raise awareness about the risk of them going extinct.
They will know me first as a man, as a foreigner who love to draw elephant, and hopefully my books and my story will stimulate them to better understand the fate of the elephant.
Friday's art class is just one of South Korea's many cultural exchanges with the countries of ASEAN as it looks to strengthen and expand its cultural ties with Southeast Asia.
Here at the ASEAN Culture House, we are carrying out cultural, academic, and personnel exchange programs with countries in Southeast Asia. Through these different programs, we hope South Korean people can get to know the region's culture in a more friendly way.
Since its establishment in 2017, South Korea's ASEAN Culture House has played a major role in building cultural ties and closer relationships with the 10 countries of ASEAN under the government's so-called New Southern Policy. Kan Young-woo, Arirang News.
South Korea's consumer sentiment continues to fall, with the index dropping for the 3rd consecutive month in July. According to the Bank of Korea, the figure stands at 95.9 for this month, below the threshold of 100, meaning there are more pessimists than optimists. The figure is down 1.6 points from last month and is at the lowest level since last November. The BOK attributed the fall to Japan's export restrictions, the ongoing US-China trade war, and sluggish export growth. North Korea's GDP in 2018 fell by over 4% compared to the previous year. The Bank of Korea says this is the biggest drop since 1997, when the regime went through a severe famine. Seoul Central Bank attributed the poor growth to international sanctions and poor agricultural yields. The North's exports dropped by over 86% compared to 2017 and imports by over 31%, shrinking North Korea's overall trade volume by nearly half. The 3rd and newest hiking trail along the DMZ will open in the border town of Paju next month. South Korea's tourism agency says group tours on this trail, about 30 kilometers north of Seoul, will start on August 10th. The 20-kilometer course will start and end at Imjinggak Pavilion and pass Torasan Observatory and a demolished guard post. For the first time, visitors will be able to see one of the 10 guard posts demolished under last September's Inter-Korean Military Accord. Tours can be booked on the agency's website. The Seoul Metropolitan Government is running a campaign to reduce teenage obesity. The campaign aims to reduce the amount of sugar consumed by adolescents, as government surveys found their sugar intake is higher than other age groups. Images aimed at reducing sugar intake have been posted on buses and on social media. The campaign is being run jointly by two global public health agencies. That has been your 3-minute news flash.
Heavy rain is finally dissipating here in the central region.
Yes, but it's only temporary. We are expecting a lot more through the weekend. Let's get more from our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle.
Now, with raindrops becoming thinner, a storm warning issue for the capital has been lifted. On the other hand, parts of the southern provinces are still issued with heavy rain alerts. Now, the central region was ravaged by heavy loads of precipitation, but 300 millimeters or more of rain are still expected to fall until Sunday. Meanwhile, the southern regions will see less amount, but sudden and sporadic downpours are still in the works. And the rain should dissipate by tomorrow night in the southern areas, but if you are in the central region, stay updated with the weather forecast before you head outside. Now, checking out the readings for Saturday, the nation will wake up to a hot, stuffy morning with temperatures reaching at least 24 degrees Celsius. Now, with no sun shining in, Seoul will rise up to 28 degrees, while the rest of the regions below will be issued with heat waves reading well into their 30s. But after this monsoon rain, we are expecting heat waves bringing back the sizzling hot weather to the nation. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That will do it for this edition of Arirang News. Thank you, as always, for watching.
And News in Depth is next.